So this is just to sort of highlight why we're bothering with all of this stuff. What's the point of continually speaking about this subject that doesn't really entail anything? Non-duality doesn't even mean anything. It doesn't even refer to anything really. So it's like, why do we continue talking about nothing essentially? What's the point? The mind will say, what? Why am I bothering with all this stuff? You know, during the search, this sort of non-dual stuff consumed so much time and energy and money, even, for such a long, seemingly long period of time. It was an obsession. All this non-duality stuff, or previously different types of spirituality, and really it came down to just suffering. I don't want to suffer. The mind says, I'm suffering, and I don't want to suffer. I want to get out of suffering. I want to not suffer anymore. I want to be free. I want to be free of suffering, and I want to be free to do what I want. And so this mind wants something from this. So I'm watching these videos, and I want something from them. I'd watch video after video, read book after book, because there's an I. So you could say, what's the wanter? Who, who is it that wants? My friend Charlie Hayes, he said, I want, therefore I am. Or you could say, I lack, therefore I am. So it's this I that defines itself through suffering, essentially. So I'm defining myself by dis-ease or suffering or a problem of some kind. So who I am for myself is that I don't feel right with myself, or there's something wrong, or I'm suffering. So this is a very strong sort of sense. For years it was the foreground of experience that I'm suffering. Not I'm not happy, maybe, or I want to feel better. So this movement, we can call it suffering or call it whatever, but it's sort of this an energy or a story that arises, and it's believed. So it's believed that there's someone here that's suffering or that could die or whatever. And it's very palpable. It's very real and direct experience. But as it's looked into more and more, it becomes more vague. It seems real initially, you could say, that I am a person who suffers. But as it's looked into, it's seen to be very vague. What is the suffering really? I'm not sure what suffering really is, so I look into what it is. And it seemed to be stories about someone and feelings happening to someone. So then, of course, the non-dual idea is, well, who is the someone? Who's the someone that it's happening to? And that's really the inquiry. Who is the someone that's the center of this madness of suffering and personal anguish and a problem? Who is the problemer? Who's the one that makes the problem and experiences it? And then it's seen that there is no one there. But while there's suffering, suffering is the idea that there is such a person there, you could say. Jeff Foster said, suffering is the sufferer. So the idea that there is someone suffering. Basically, looking back right now, there's sensations. There's a sensation that's happening, and the mind can say anything about it. It can say, I don't want it. It could say, that's anxiety, or that's joy, or that's fear, or that's pleasure. Or the mind can say, I want to keep this feeling around. So it's really, what's the nature of this structure of this mind, or this I notion? So what is this I that wants or doesn't want? And in looking into that, it becomes clear that it's not made of anything real. So the central solid thing isn't actually solid. It's ephemeral. It's an appearance. that happens. So suffering is basically taking an appearance to be real. It's a misidentification. You could say it's an erroneous investment. So it's an investment in something that isn't actually real. In fact, it doesn't even appear all the time. What we call the personal self or the ego or whatever isn't even always in experience as at all. Oftentimes there's simply awareness in which content arises. But even when there's the idea of a person, it's not solid. And in seeing that, suffering ends because there's no longer the belief that there's anyone to suffer. There can still be sensations that the mind may call painful, or thoughts that seem to imply a person, but they're not taken on board as real. They're just passing. It's like a wad of thoughts that are taken to be this real, actual, contracted person. And in seeing that's all simply a sort of a misconception or an erroneous identification, then anything can happen. The idea that I'm a person can happen, or the idea that there's others, or the idea that maybe I'm a Christian, or anything can happen. You could say the paradigm is that there's nothing that's restricted. The idea of a person is always about different experiences, some of which are good and some of which are bad. Freedom is just anything can happen, and that's it. It's not a doctrine, it's just a way, you could say it's a way of being in which there's nothing in the way. So there's nothing in the way of life. There's nothing that is getting in the way of what's happening. So it's like the thing that was trying to block life and dam it up and divert it into the right stream, into the right experience. It's sort of like the end of that belief, that believed in thing that was attempting to sort of manipulate the flow of life for its own good. So then life just happens it's sort of an explosion that doesn't really go anywhere though. It's just life for the sake of itself, you could say, or it's living without the need for someone to be alive. Or but see, the pointers sound so bizarre sometimes, or so overly conceptual, but it's not about any of that really. It's about something palpable and real, and you could say you are that, but the you isn't an entity, so it's not an entity that is that. That is that. It's very, it's impossible to point to really, but it's the changelessness that is real, and you could say it's love. It is love in the most real sense, because it doesn't come and go, and it doesn't judge, and it isn't conditional. So it's not if only. There's no if onlys or shoulds in it. There is just there is only that really. But for a person, the imaginary person, this won't. This is impossible. So it's really a matter of seeing what this person is, and ultimately seeing that it's not. The person is not. And of course, again, when we say the person, it really refers to separation as a valid paradigm. So separation is an appearance, but it's not real. It's just another thing that happens, apparently. So the idea of a separate person is usually taken on board as real and valid and a problem. It's just a matter of seeing that this is only an appearance, this is only a stage performance, the imagined separation. And in seeing that, there's no one to have a problem, and there's no one that needs anything. So thanks for listening.